and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton, and today we're going to meet our newest council member. It's Teresa Schmidt. Welcome, Teresa.
Thank you, Robin.
I should say your full name because I'm going to ask you about your background. Teresa Schmidt.
Teresa
You're a
Schmidt.
Hampton girl.
Yes.
Grew up here.
All my life, yeah.
In Fox Hill, right?
No, actually, I was not a Fox Hillian, which is shocking to a lot of people.
Yes.
Brought up in the Fox Bridge section, which is a distinct difference. Any Fox Hillian would tell you. But I think people associate me with Fox Hill because of the business. My family had a business down there, Vanessa Bait and Tackle. And so people kind of assume that we're Fox Hillians.
That's right.
Now, I do live in the Fox Hill section right now. So, but I wasn't born there. So if you're not born there,
that's right.
You know, you're not a Fox Hillian.
I have learned that about Fox Hill. It's very, very particular.
Yes, yes.
Well, so was being in politics a part of your background because of your father? I mean, was that a big influence on you?
Absolutely, it was. It was probably one of the reasons that I decided to run. You know, it just kind of, it becomes part of your family. You know, your parents are talking about it, and you're talking about it as, you know, you brought up, because Dad was in politics when I was in high school. So it was at the age where I could work in the campaigns, you know, with him, and it was back in the time when you self-addressed the envelopes and, you know, put the stamps on the envelopes, the whole thing. And so, you know, that was very much a part of it. And, you know, in working, you know, at the polls themselves. Mm-hmm. So, you know.
Did you knock on doors?
Little bit, not fond of it, not fond of knocking on doors too much, but we did a little bit of that.
And he served on, let's just recap for people, he served on city council, but ran for other office as well?
No, he served on city council. The reason probably people associate him with other positions is because a lot of people will come down to the store, declare their candidacy or look to him for support because, you know, he had a lot of political pull, or he has a lot of political pull still.
Yes, yes.
You know, in the neighborhood,
people would kind of come ask for his
advice,
and his blessing to some extent.
Right.
I know that sounds a little
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true. It's true very much.
So you grew up all around that, and so, and I called it politics before, and I really don't like to use that term because I think of it more as governance and leadership.
It is absolutely. Yeah, and I don't like to call it that either because it has a very negative connotation.
It does. It's like in politics you're in it for yourself or the gains, and in leadership and governance you're running things and influencing the direction of whatever it is.
And you have an interest.
Your school system. Yeah.
Yes.
So when did you get bit by the bug?
Gosh, I would say probably 6 or 7 years ago. Kind of got bit by the bug. You know, I mean, it's in you, but you know, you're doing other things and you're busy with your life, raising children. So, you know, at that point, I had no desire because I was so busy, you know, with all of that. Mm-hmm. But then, you know, once they leave the home and you know, then you have time, then you start thinking about, you know, what you're going to do next. And that just came about. That was one of the things, yeah.
Okay. And professionally, what do you do, Teresa?
Right now, I work at Community Presbyterian Preschool. I'm one of the directors there. And I've been doing that for 19, 20 years.
Wow.
And so that's been a long time. And prior to that, I worked at my dad's store, you know, at Vanessa Bait and Tackle. My parents owned that. And I did that part-time. So I've always worked, you know, a couple jobs, used to doing that. And
we'll count raising kids as a job because it is.
and raising kids, yeah, that was probably, you know, more than a full-time job, especially 3 boys, but they're all good boys. They were good boys. Pretty good boys. Yeah, pretty good boys. I don't want
as good as boys get, right?
Good, yes,
nobody's perfect.
Right. They're normal. They're normal boys, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so education is a part of your background, preschools, working with kids. Does that influence the issues you want to focus on as you see yourself as a
It absolutely does. You know, I just see it as so critical that children are prepared, you know, when they enter school. It's more than just academics. You know, it's social, it's emotional, that they feel good about themselves. It makes us always feel good when we hear, you know, the kindergarten teachers say, you know, wow, okay, we have a, you know, student from Community Presbyterian, and, you know, we know they're prepared to learn. And it just makes us feel good because we know what they're saying. You know, they don't have to start off from learning how to, for example, line up. You know, this is something that they've already done, and it's something that now comes natural to them, so they can bypass that and go on to the academics, you know, overall. So it is important. It's critical.
So what issues, if I could let you talk about up to 3 things that you want to focus on for the direction of the city strategically, what is your area of interest?
Education is definitely priority. You know, I think it's beyond preparing our students for college. You know, education becomes such an important element in the community for businesses, you know, that want to relocate here. You know, they want an educated community. It speaks to the health of your community, crime overall. You know, I just think it's one of those things where, you know, we've got a lot of marvelous programs in Hampton, you know, in the school system. And if you want your child to do well, then your child's going to do well. But when we have outsiders looking in, you know, they're not able to look at all these, you know, programs. You know, what they look for, unfortunately, you know, a lot of them will go online and they're going to look at test scores.
Right.
Well,
average test scores too.
Right. Sure. And, you know, and so we may get bypassed simply because of that. And their student would otherwise do very well, but they don't know it.
Right, that's what I say.
You know, I would like to get those test scores up. So.
Whenever any city has a relatively large population of kids who are economically disadvantaged, you can't take the average test score. So you look at maybe where the kids in the public school system go to college or what they do, and you think, how will my child? When you're picking colleges, you don't just look at test scores. You say, who has the programs that will benefit my child?
Sure.
Where can he or she get the best education? People don't do that in the public schools, and they should.
Right. You're right.
Because the average test score is virtually meaningless.
You're exactly right. Because they're going to look online, and it just doesn't display any of that. You know, it doesn't give the whole picture, the whole shebang of what's going on in
Okay,
Hampton.
so education.
Okay,
what else?
So education.
What else?
You know, every citizen, the tax burden is, you know, an issue. So anything that's going to relieve a tax burden off the citizen is important. You know, whether it's capitalizing on Fort Monroe and, you know, all the tourism, you know, that we should be drawing there, or whether it's bringing businesses to our science park. And, you know, and again, education is important to that because they want a workforce that is prepared. And, you know, it's going to bring good paying jobs to Hampton. And, you know, whether it's that or it's a sports complex, you know, whatever it happens to be that's going to complement our city, you know, that's going to relieve the tax burden from them. This is one of the focuses.
Now, how do you communicate that to people? Because sometimes people think, oh, you're attracting business, and so business gets a tax break, but they don't look at that longer term, what do they pay back?
Exactly. And I can understand that, you know. Being in a family business, you know, in a small business, we look and say, well, you know, as a family business, we didn't receive those breaks, you know, that a larger company. And anymore, you almost have to do that to attract them. It's unfortunate, but it's become of the age where you need to bring them in to attract them in. And so in the long run, you're right, Robin, you know, it's going to be a relief after a period of time. Right. You know, but initially, you know, you have to incentivize and that's the way you have to do it.
And then you get that return at some point, and the incentives are, you know, like a 3-year return or whatever that is, to the point where they begin contributing to the city's bottom line in a big way.
Yeah. And if I could say another one, I would say, you know, one thing I would like to do is to help the citizens feel the pride in Hampton that they really should be feeling. You know, it's become very popular to speak bad about your city. And, you know, that just really is disheartening to me when I hear that. You know, I feel that we've got a lot to be proud of, but we're not. And so, I don't want to say everybody. You know, certainly I don't want to say everybody.
Well, I will say, you know, when one of the consultants came in and he was looking at the downtown Steiner, and he said, I have never been in a place where people beat you up with 20-year-old issues and decisions that were made in the past, maybe to attract, the hotel on the waterfront, and it included a parking garage, or decisions that have been made and that are long paid for, long past. People still, kind of hammer on those things, and it creates this sort of, we beat up on each other more than any other city I've ever seen.
Yeah, we do. We do, and I quite often I think about like Annapolis, Maryland, as soon as I have a son who lives there. And as soon as I mention Annapolis, Maryland, somebody's like, wow, that's a really nice city, but when I visited there, I don't find it any more attractive than Hampton. All the water that we have and the access to the water. It's very limited in Annapolis. You have the waterway, you walk down the street, and it's gorgeous. But we don't have the access there. We may have to go to a state park, and we'll have to pay $10, to get in, to go to the waterway, even if we want to stay, 10, 15 minutes. But you don't have to do that here in Hampton. So pride is just it's so huge to everyone as far as feeling comfortable about your own city, but it's also huge for selling your city.
Yes.
People don't realize the more you say, the negative things you say about your city, you're not selling your city. Nobody wants to join you if you're going to talk bad about your city.
Right.
So
you're hurting in the long run. I feel like sometimes it's like a family squabble, and Hampton is small enough that people are almost fighting within each other. Now, if someone from the outside comes and beats up on Hampton, they'll suddenly turn and go, oh no, Hampton's great. Well, that's not what you said a few minutes ago. Well, that's different.
Well, and that's a good point. I mean, we are small enough where we are like a family. And so we do know everybody, which is an advantage and then a disadvantage. But, even like in your own family, if you've got a squabble, well, you don't continue to talk bad about a family member. You try to lift the family member up. And, this is, we're all family here, and this is what we need to be doing, to bring our city up.
Well, it's interesting because that was one of the topics, one of the 10 issues, really, community pride was one of the big things that came out of the community plan, however long ago. That's been about 3 years now. I mean, people recognize that we need it, and I think figuring out how to get it is a little bit of the challenge.
It is, yeah.
Well, what do you think, Hampton? Let's look forward 10 years, 20 years in the future. What would you hope to see in Hampton?
Well, I would like to see a lot of the blighted neighborhoods cleaned up, fixed up, cleaned up. I think we have very old neighborhoods, and a lot of them are deteriorating, and so I would like to see a lot of that cleaned up, and we've done a lot of it already. I see our science park has taken off. That's going to be one area that I really believe we have great hopes for.
And that, we should mention, that's a public-private partnership where the city isn't taking all the risk, but is sharing a little bit of risk, and the private developer is doing the bulk of that.
Yeah.
One of those innovative ways.
And hopefully Fort Monroe, will take off. It's been a little bit slow start, and I think we all recognize it has been. But at the same time, maybe that's a good thing, because sometimes when you jump too quick, you make mistakes and you don't put enough thought into it. So hopefully in 10 years, that'll take off.
What does takeoff look like?
Oh,
is
gosh,
it
Robin,
businesses? Is it residents? Is it new development? Or is it more park and history?
I always just keep coming back to thinking about Williamsburg, and, that just being such a gorgeous place where you have living space, you have businesses, you have that history, and people just come to Williamsburg over and over again. And not just for the history, they'll come just to walk, just for the beauty of it, to shop, to eat at restaurants, to chill out, just to relax. And, I can kind of envision this comfortable feeling at Fort Monroe, as long as it's done right,
So good mixed use, lots of things there.
Yeah, I kind of envision that.
Yep, so do I. And then it just sort of spills into Phoebus and downtown and becomes, instead of those separate, the regions are separate, but more of a flow, more of an infill between them.
Sure, I think it's very promising for Buckrow, and I think it's very promising for Phoebus too. And, and then you go on to downtown. I mean, downtown's not far from there.
Right.
Yeah.
It all can grow into being.
Yes. Yeah.
That sounds exciting.
Just feel some really exciting things coming about for Hampton.
Good. Well, I hope we're both here in 20 years to see
know.
the results.
I know.
We'll be
I hope
part of
so.
the process.
Yeah,
But is there anything else you want to add that I haven't asked you yet?
No, Robin, it's just a lot of prayer for our city. And, that's one of the things that put me where I am is deciding where I wanted to go next. And so, that's about all.
That sounds great. Well, thank you for coming by.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for watching. I hope you have a better sense both of Teresa Schmidt as a person and also Teresa as your council member and what she's going to do and work on for our city. Thanks for watching.